Thanks for that choice, Simon. Great chorus, that. Terrific words. Good to have you back. I think we were having prayer for you last week, weren't we? So, all right, let's open up in our Bibles to Mark chapter 14. And of late, we've been thinking at the prayer and fast about re-engaging, rededicating and reviving. And I think we've probably been on the topic a little bit over the last few weeks. And I guess I'd like to stay on it a bit. Maybe today with the thought of the topic of preaching the gospel, but I maybe want to think a little bit differently about how to say that, because I think sometimes our own natural confidence can come into our thinking about our ability in this area, and yet the scriptures don't really teach that. And I want to talk more about sharing what we have, which actually came out in the gifts. Rather than talking about preaching the gospel, I just want to talk about sharing what we have, maybe just replacement words for that particular phrase. I probably want to talk here mostly today to believers. Back in the day, Pastor John has said that the communion meeting was sort of aimed at mostly talking to the saints, but he said eventually it just became the place where new people came. And so a lot of the things that have been said have obviously applied to both. And but I was just reminded of a little bit the other day, because I was talking to Pastor Ben Smith, who's our new pastor in Vancouver in Canada. And he has a communion meeting, and then his second meeting on a Sunday is a salvation meeting. He said that's where they particularly want to make sure that anything to do with helping the people get saved is covered. And I guess we try to, in our second meeting, touch on subjects that, whether it's through presentations or whatever, where we're trying to perhaps talk about current events or Bible prophecy, things that might catch people's attention. But today I do want to talk to us, and as a pastor, I guess. I mean, I didn't choose in life. I guess it was my choice. I said yes. I didn't particularly say I want to be a pastor. I was just happy to be a brother in the Lord, and I still am. I'm still your brother in the Lord. And I think all pastors feel the same way. I'm speaking on behalf of others. I can understand Kevin calling Pastor Jock a legend because he happened to have his glasses on coming down to the microphone, and from what we've heard from Andrew, as soon as you put your glasses on you look like Superman. So that's sort of a bit of an explanation there about Pastor Jock. But I've got mine on. I don't know if it does anything for me, but I suppose one of the things I hope that you want from your pastors is that not only that they care about the salvation message and whatever is in the scriptures, and that they care about you and how you are going to find your way with the Lord. Of course, we can't determine your walk in the Lord. The Bible tells us we've all got to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. But I think you would want us to lead you in the way that the Lord is asking us to go, and not of our own private interpretation or our own thoughts, but by experience of things that we've learnt in our own lives and things that we've learnt from the lives of others that we have seen. And so I just want to perhaps just dwell on a story here today about sharing what we have. So maybe we'll just start here in Mark chapter 14 and in verse 3. And being in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious. And she brake the box and poured it on his head. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, "Why was this waste of the ointment made? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and been given to the poor," and they murmured against her. Now just a little explanation here is that the 300 pence is 300 days' wages. So just as we think about that for a minute, the average yearly wage in Australia is about $67,000, and even if you're only earning 50 or 40, let's consider a gift of that magnitude. You know, we think about, I don't know if anybody ever watches the Antique Roadshow, but people bring in a vase or a set of drawings or a painting, things that they've had for many years in their family, and it's valued for them, $10,000, $20,000, and they take it home again and put it back where it was, and they just hang on to it. Now they know how valuable it is, more valuable than they even thought. This lady had such a thing in her house that was very, very valuable. So let's call it $50,000. That's what she had here that was very precious to her. And I look around my house and I think, what have I got worth $50,000? I don't think I could get anything, not even my car. Some people may have a car that's worth that. Would you give it up? So it's that level that we're talking about here with this woman, that whatever else, whatever little or lot she has in life, she has this one thing that is worth an incredible amount. And she's kept it. And she could have lost it at any time. You know, when somebody knocks over your favourite vase, and it might only be worth $30, but, you know, it's valuable to you because somebody gave it to you, or it's got a bit of history to it. But this lady, she'd managed to hang on to this for whatever day. I don't know how she got it doesn't tell us, but she managed to hang on to this carefully and never to lose it, and for this day. And in verse 6, so everybody obviously, it says in verse 5, they criticised her for using what was hers in such a way. And in verse 6, and Jesus said, "Let her alone. Why trouble ye her? She has wrought a good work on me. For you have the poor with you always, and whensoever ye will, you may do them good. But me you have not always." So he wasn't saying here that we should never give to the poor. And I guess, you know, at different times when people knock on our door or somebody is looking for a bit of assistance towards something, no reason why we shouldn't give if we're able to. And so Jesus knew that those sort of offerings are always going to be there. There will always be lots of poor people in the world. That's the way the world is, the inequity of the world. But he said, "You've only got me here for a moment." And in verse 8, she has done what she could. And I want to emphasise a bit on this today. She has come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying. Now, this is an interesting comment. Jesus, of course, is not far at this stage off being crucified and being buried, and of course, rising from the dead. But whether this lady had understood in the things that Jesus said that he was going to die, and she had decided, I'm going to do something here. Whether she had decided, it doesn't tell us, and whether she just thought he was special because of all the things that he said and did, and she thought, I could do no better thing than use what I have here for this moment, for this man, the Son of God. I would rather use it in this way than any other thing that I could do in my life. And so in verse 9, "Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, this also that she has done shall be spoken for memorial of her." And so here we are today, 2,000 years later, reading of the memorial of this woman, of what she did on that day that only a handful of people saw, but it was recorded for us to be able to appreciate. Now, the complete opposite, I will just touch for a moment in verse 10. And Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 who walked with Jesus, went to the chief priests to betray him unto them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. 30 pieces of silver. And complete opposite to this woman in his approach, in his attitude, in whatever he did. Now, I suppose I just want to think a little bit about this woman. She has done what she could. And we have been given a tremendous present ourselves, worth more than the thing that she reserved there in her home. We've been given life, and not just a few extra years, not just, Michael Montier living past his heart problem and strokes to live a bit longer to keep company with us. It's nice to have you here, Michael. But eternal life has been given to us so that we cannot be defeated. So these things that we have, they cannot be taken. They are riches. And the word gospel means good news. It's funny that people want to make the Bible this point of controversy and of all things bad. And it's good news. It's nothing but good news to help us to overcome things in our life and to go on and to live forever. And these are the riches that we have been given. And so the Lord has wanted us to feel so glad with what's been given to us that we would just want to share that in some way as we can. And I suppose in natural life, that often when we have things, and we've got our home set up and we're in a good position in life, or even if we just got the basics, it's nice at times to be able to do things for other people and to open our door, to give people a lift, to do various things to help people. It's just human kindness out of the feeling that you have been given something and you'd like to be able to share it. I suppose I've enjoyed a bit more of late, while we've been talking on this topic, of just getting myself back to spending more time with people who are unsaved. And I finally got myself going on somebody recently. There's a takeaway shop that we particularly like, a Chinese takeaway shop. And I'd often sort of tried to chat to the guy, just, being friendly, hello, and told him a little bit about our group in China, but I didn't really know how much he heard because there was so much going on and a big screen in between us, glass screen. But I'd say to him, you should come around one day and we cook for you. You're always cooking for everybody else. And we never really got to it. And then when I got a bit stirred up the other week, I thought, no, blow it. And I walked past him and I said, it's time you come for dinner. And he said, I'm closing my shop next week. I said, well, then you definitely can come for dinner. And so we booked it. And he came with his wife, his children, two girls. And ladies often don't like to come without something, without giving something, if they're given something. And so they come in, they've got flowers. One of the little girls has got a box of cakes for us because they want to give of what they've got in response to what we did. And so we sit down and have a good time chatting and finding out about their lives, their background, all very interesting. And just in our home, Kathy did a fair bit to sort of lay things out nicely for them. And I sort of half promised myself that I didn't want to witness straight away. I thought, just go slow and just get to know them. We might get an invite back. Anyway, halfway through, it was just impossible to avoid. And so we got onto the subject about the things of the Lord, and questions started to come. And those moments, and we all know them, those moments where you've got somebody who knows nothing. These people are atheists. They have no concept of Christianity whatsoever, but their daughter is going to a Christian school. So she's done Christmas celebrations at school, the nativity scene, etc., etc. And you're sort of saying, yeah, look, you're new to Christianity, and that's not actually Christianity. That's just people who are trying to understand how Christianity works, and they're just making it look like all other religions. It's just all about celebrations and festivities and so on. I said the difference with us is that God comes into us and walks with us every day, and wherever we are celebrating every day of our life. I said the other thing is it's just a deception. It doesn't give joy, it doesn't give life, it doesn't give miracles, it just gives a sort of a false hope. So we're talking about all these things, and it's just a thrill. And as it turns out, they enjoyed coming over. We've got a message afterwards. They've invited us to their place. And so I'm hoping for what might come next. And I suppose I've been thinking a little bit that, like we see here in this circumstance, that here there were people gathered in a house and Jesus was invited into the home. And I wonder sometimes if we want to just get to normal people, we've got to do normal things. And here we have Jesus just living life, just going about, being invited here, being invited there, but taking opportunity as he went. And that has been a lot of the success of our assembly over many years, that has been the case. I think we've got, I'll name a few names, but we've got people here in the Montgomery family. And the beginnings of the Montgomery family coming here was that one of our brothers, Millarden, was working on a building site. I'm sure many of you know the story. And he met Scott Montgomery as a plumber on the site who had a bad back. And just as the course of the day went, Millarden said to him that could be healed and offered him prayer. Not on Sunday, but then. He said, could I pray for you? Anyway, as it turns out, Scott lets it happen and then walks away and realises he's actually been healed, and can't seem to get the bad back no matter what he does. And as a result, boom, 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 the family come. Mum, children, Ayla was singing here before, and just normal life of what has happened there. We have a couple here, Eugene and Jazz, and they have a happy marriage. They've only just started, but we're hoping it'll stay that way. And but Jazz was in the St. John's ambulance. She just enjoyed doing that as a volunteer. And her testimony in this area is that she didn't want to be wondering how she was going to find a man and looking around the assembly and trying to rate every man that she saw. She didn't want to sort of go down that path. But instead, she thought, well, if I just get myself ready in the Lord, then the Lord will look after the rest and do the choosing and sort it out for me. So she's there at the St. John's ambulance, and all of a sudden she meets Eugene. And she, not particularly to say, oh, he's the one to marry, but she ends up witnessing to him. He comes to the Lord, and guess what? He thought she was pretty good in more ways than one. And now they're happily married. One of our brothers, some years ago, was playing a footy match. And during the footy match, one of the guys on his own team lost his cool. And so the brother in the Lord sort of said to him, easy, take it easy. And later on in the change rooms, the unsaved guy said to him that, look, sorry about what happened before. He said, but we've just had a stillbirth. And so, because the answer was, and it was given, you need the Lord. and a witness starts up in the change room. And as it turns out, he turned up late to Youngies and sort of got a bit of a tap on the shoulder, but maybe that's something we've got to be careful about. Because if we turn up late for something because we're trying to save a soul, is God going to be unhappy? You know, that's our prime calling. Wayne and Diane Riggs, years ago, when they got married, went on honeymoon to Port Lincoln somewhere. Coulter. Went on honeymoon to Coulter. Witnessed to a lady there by the name of Pam, who is still in the Lord today. On her own down there, but she has continued to follow the Lord. In fact, Mark and Norma Oldfield went over there and stayed for a while in an attempt to try and build an assembly there. David Haynes came to the Lord through the Tunarama. For those, how many people went to the Tunarama? You remember that? Oh, it must be a long time ago. Okay, so here's people just living normal life. The Wyatts ended up having a job up somewhere, Mildura, I think Mark was working. And while they're there, not really wanting to be there, but Shirley ends up speaking to Max, who we now have in the Lord in Berry, who talks to everything that moves. Just normal life. People living life, enjoying life, and but the Lord is with them. And they're just finding opportunity by the circumstances that they're in. And I suppose that what I maybe want to be take notice of at the moment is that because of maybe partly the age of our assembly, we've been around a long time, and maybe partly because of the experience of COVID, that there is a temptation to become inward and to, you know, it takes a long time to get to know everybody here, and it's good fun. Pastor Tony and Julie have moved here. It's great to have them. They've moved in now, new home. They want to meet you all, one by one. They already know a lot of you. But I'm sure they also want to preach the gospel where they've moved. And so it becomes this balance of how to try to deal with that. And as time has gone on, in some ways I wonder whether we have moved away from some of the things that we used to do. And we have a lot more camps now. And they're all good and they all do good things. But we have a stack of camps. I think some other assemblies wouldn't be able to believe what we do, camps-wise. But other things that we used to do, which were all geared towards new people, we used to put Don't Knock Noah on 8 times a year. We used to take it to other towns. We would have concerts to get new people to. We would have dinner nights where you could only come with a ticket being your new person. We would have slide nights where your only ticket really was a new person. We would have coffee mornings along the same lines. And because our thoughts were, how can we save people? And we would have dinners and barbecues in our own homes where they would just be a focus of a Friday night or a Saturday night where we could to say, oh, let's round up a few. Let's have some fun with this. And it did us a lot of good. It created activity. There is no doubt that COVID has slowed our activity this way. And yet it's a time that's maybe just as important as any other. You know, back in 1990, 91, we built a prophecy display. And the timing of that was unique because the moment we put that display out at the Glenelg Town Hall, for those who remember that, we had 20 baptisms in the town hall. It was a very different sort of outreach. And we actually baptised them on the spot. But Saddam Hussein sort of did us a favour, and we had a war in the Middle East, and everybody came in and they saw these, I think the first doors we had up there, so we had all these doors that were painted. And here's this one that says Wars and Rumours of Wars. It's all painted red and it's got a battleship silhouetted in black and then newspaper clippings on there of Saddam Hussein, and you walk in and you go, bang, it hits you. And then we went to pestilences and so on and so on. And people came in and they listened and we talked to them. And what sort of a time are we in now? Where we've got what's going on in the world now. We could make something up like that without much trouble to grab people's attention if we wanted to do that. There are many things that we are capable of. We read of this woman here in verse 8, she has done what she could. She brought her best. And I think that if I can also just touch, and I don't want to appear that we are having a go at anybody here. This is just trying to guide us of things that I think a lot of us are already aware of. I think most of us were aware that when we first got live stream, that it was a lifesaver, an absolute lifesaver. Other churches were closing down, and we provided that, and there was a lot of effort went into it. But after a while, it becomes too comfortable. And if we all stayed home like that, if we all had the thought, well, actually, it does me good, it does my family good, well, then nobody would be here. And we would be an American church who runs it from some show, and we all sit at home and we swipe our Visa card somehow or other. You know, that's what it would end up as. But the Lord has called us to fellowship and to communion. That's His way. His is not the televangelist way. That's their way. And we've never followed their style of doing things. And so while I think we all know that there are some people in our fellowship who still need it and will always need it because they are just infirmed. And they probably don't want to remain in that position. They probably want to be here. But while they're not able to be here, we are more than happy to provide it. But that doesn't stop the fact we want to visit them. We don't say, okay, we forget about that now because they've got the TV. They want to see us. But we have to be aware also that for some of us, it doesn't actually do us any good. It slows us down. And bit by bit, we convince ourselves that, oh, well, I got it online. It was fine. When in actual fact, you missed a heck of a lot. You couldn't participate in the gifts. You couldn't participate in fellowship afterwards. You couldn't really participate in the singing, and so it goes on. You couldn't participate in lifts and taking people home, and you're right there, sister. She needs some water, I think. It's not particularly healthy for us. It's got its place, but we've got to be mindful of these things that will start to slow down all the good things that God has put in place, and to make sure that they don't get the better of us. And, you know, there are things where, you know, hallelujah, more and more people are coming back. But I wonder whether we should think a little further too of some things before COVID. That have we really got, just think about it for yourself, what's your reason for not coming to a midweek meeting? I don't just mean the house meeting, I mean the hall meeting. What's your reason? You think it through as to how that benefits your life when there are people who are coming here that desperately need your fellowship. They need to hear your testimony. They need to hear your singing. Your children will benefit by being here. They are looking for friends. They run around here afterwards. We love it. No problem, as long as they don't break anything. But we love having them here. And if you think that there are things that we need to put in place to make it better for your children, come and talk to us. We try to put in place as much as we can to make it work. Remember, we're just brothers and sisters. We're all in it together. So how can we do it to make it work for all of us? For people who need a special chair, for people who need a special warmth, I think we all like that. For whatever our needs might be, the lifts that might be needed, that are covered so that we can come together. You know, even in PNG, where they have so many wonderful healings, one of the special ministries that they have is that they have some truck drivers who go around and pick up the people in wheelchairs. And they come and they sit there They haven't been healed yet, but they're looking forward to it. But they look after them too. They find a way to make sure that everybody is included somehow or other. We've been blessed with many children. We have young people's activities on Saturday nights for our kids so that they're not so drawn into the world. And do whatever you can to get your kids there. It is valuable for them. Because if they miss out, their friendship and their attention will go elsewhere. And one of the great things about the gospel is that it is sort of all-encompassing. It brings in not only salvation for other people, healing for other people, but it brings in children, friends for your children. It brings in teenagers and people who are older that might marry your children when they get older. It brings in happiness to us and to them when we mix. It also brings in some conflict here and there where we need to make a stand, which is good for us as well, because we don't want to be wimpy. You know, I think again we heard in the gifts about this overcoming that God has called us to, where the Lord makes us stronger. So I suppose I'm maybe drawing the attention here a bit to, do we need to rejig our thinking a bit and to say, have I got into a bit of a rut or a bit of a habit that is not, she's got her drink, good Cassandra. Have I got into a habit that is not like this woman where she brought her best? And if we want the best from the Lord, and he gave his very best, and if we want to have a fantastic fellowship where iron sharpens iron, isn't it better when we're all doing that? Now, I know there's always going to be reasons and different problems in different families, but can we find a way to rejig our thinking? Because if we don't, once we become inward, what happens is you start getting people problems, you start getting marriage problems, kid problems. It's not that we don't ever have them anyway, but it's sort of, we can end up thinking, oh, we need to talk more to all the people who are married about how to have a good marriage. We need to talk more about how to help people bring up their children. We need to talk more about how to this and how to that. We need to go to psychologists and listen to them. But I don't read in the Bible that it's about, in a sense, perfect lives. You know, there's a lot of lives here where people have come from broken marriages, broken families, and it hasn't all been made perfect for them. But you know what's perfect, as we were singing before? Our righteousness in him. That's perfect. Nothing else is perfect. And some of us have, I think a lot of you, have done a lot to serve the Lord in very imperfect situations, where you mightn't have been able to help your own children, but you helped somebody else's. You mightn't have been able to help your own marriage, but somehow or other you're able to encourage others. Why? Because we're overcomers. And we know what we're here for. We're here for the work of the Lord, not just for our own comforts and to make a nice life. So, rejigging our thinking. Luke chapter 6. And in verse 32. For if you love them which love you, what thank have you? For sinners also love those that love them. And if you do good to them which do good to you, what thank have you? For sinners also do even the same. And if you lend to them of whom you hope to receive, what thank have ye? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again, and your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest. For he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. And then also down in verse, maybe we'll read 37 as well. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. We don't need to be involved in judgment of people. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. And then this one, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. Now, I think what describes this passage here in a modern term is pay it forward. That God has blessed us, so we don't need to go back to the people who've told us the gospel and particularly say we need to entertain them and look after them, but how do we pay it forward? And in thankfulness and appreciation for what has been given to us, and just, as I was saying before, enjoy life, live life. But with it, with the Lord in us, we think, how can I pay it forward to somebody that I'm working with, somebody I'm living next door to, somebody that I've met on holidays, or wherever, that God will be in it. And that very moment that somebody asks you, wherever you might happen to be. Remember an unusual one, a sister in New Zealand came to the Lord, got witnessed to on a cruise ship. Now you'll want to go on a cruise ship. Came to the Lord, the last place she would have thought she would have heard the gospel. But the Lord has put this thing within us that is hard to shut up. And we don't have to say the whole lot. Sometimes it's just starting a conversation, saying hello, making a friend. And often in life, friendships are made in unusual ways. You might help somebody out in a car accident because you couldn't drive by. You might end up talking to a teacher because your child was bullied at school, and you end up making friends with the teacher because they've helped in the circumstance. Or like our brother Isaac Riggs's testimony where he was bullied, end up making friends with the bully. There's so many ways where we meet people and just one conversation from a stranger to a friend, just one conversation, we can all meet people. And we might not think of ourselves as evangelists or I know everything to say, but we can be friendly. We can just be friendly, say hello, and see where it goes as we live life. So it says here, give and it shall be given unto you. So the Lord is showing to us that the gospel is all-encompassing. If we give of the riches that have been given to us, he's saying, I'm going to look after you. So the things that you're worrying about in your life, he says, I'm going to look after it. You go do my work, I'll look after you. I'll look after your marriage. I'll look after your children. I'll help you to make the right decisions in life. Let's go to Mark 16. Probably can't go past that one. And in verse 15, and he said unto them, go you into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Now, two things I just want to, well, maybe three, I want to point out here. The first word that he says is go. It's not a sedentary thing. It's not a sitting still thing. It's an on the move thing. Wherever we move in life. The next one, the little word ye. You'll see in the Bible in the Old English that there is ye and you and thee and thou, and people often say, what's all that about? Well, ye is the plural of you. So in good old Southern American, it's y'all. You all is what it's saying. So it's not saying go you to one person, it's saying go you all, because it says ye. So the Lord has made it quite clear to us when he said to Simon Peter, he said, I'll make you a fisher. Don't you worry. I'll make you that. Now some of us might talk more and some less, but it doesn't matter. However we do it, however we're comfortable to do it. Whatever our particular story is, whatever our opportunities are, you are the one on the spot. And you will meet people that no one else in this hall will meet, where you have opportunity. And so he says here, go you into all the world and share what you have. Share your good news. Wherever you have opportunity. And then he says in verse 16, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. If you can get them to meet some other saints one day, if you can get them here one day, then they can be baptized and be saved. But he that believeth not shall be damned. So we will help people to avoid the damnation, the judgment of God. And in verse 17, and these signs shall follow them that believe. Here's the good news. In my name shall they cast out devils, they shall speak with new tongues, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Do you remember the story of Noel Kavanagh? We saw the testimony from the Sunshine Coast. He had the big lump on his head. Do you remember that story? Tumour. I rang him 2 days before he was due to die. I was told he was dying. And I just wanted to say goodbye to him. Everything had been tried. And there seemed to be no hope at all. And so I said some last words in a way to him. And then I heard he'd been completely healed. I rang him again the other day. He said, that big lump, he said it's down to 5 millimetres. He says he almost doesn't have to wear a hat. He looks almost normal again. On his head, completely healed of this brain tumour. And it's an extensive story. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. People need to hear these stories. They deserve to hear them. And in verse 20, and they went forth and said hello everywhere. The Lord working with them and confirming the word with signs following. So it's for all of us. Let's do ourselves a favour, and if we need to rejig our thinking a bit and say, I've got to look more outward. And I love my fellowship and I love everything I've got here, but what can I do in some way? Lord, you lead me. You use who I am. Like the woman who brought the alabaster box. There's other things she couldn't do, but that was something she could do. And let us share the gift that's been given to us in the name of Jesus Christ wherever we can, and pray that the Lord will give great increase to us and that our fellowship will kick on with lots of new faces here. All the people said? Leave it there.